Good evening and welcome to this yet another video virtual meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. Here we are on September the 3rd at 6 p.m. from our various homes and offices. We thank you for being with us, and I would like to remind everyone that there'll be a public comment period. The phone number for that is 621-8636, and the participation code is 939496. I'd like to call this meeting to order by asking Mr. Ogeron if he would please lead us in the prayer and the pledge. Unmute.
Please prepare yourselves for prayer. Thank you, Mr. Lord, we thank you for sparing us the devastation of Hurricanes Laura earlier in the month. We are very grateful for the kindness that you bestow upon us and the direction that you give us. Lord, tonight we have a number of tasks that we're called upon to serve the people of the parish of Ascension. We ask that you give us the wisdom and the humility to do what is best and right for those, our neighbors. Through the help of your Son, Jesus, we anticipate tonight's meeting to be very smooth and very successful. Through your grace, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. At this time, I do not see Councilman Thomas. Coach is not on as of yet, so I'm going to consider him absent at this time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I believe both he and Councilman Robert, Councilman Robert just showed, we're at the West Ascension Drainage meeting earlier, so they're probably going to be a few minutes late trying to get in.
Thank you for the clarification. So Councilman Robert has joined us, so we have everyone, and I think we probably will have everyone as soon as Coach Thomas can join us. At this time, I would like to mention to you all, as I've talked to a few of you before, the chair would like to ask you for the privilege of adding to the agenda tonight a item that we will refer to as L, and it is the approval of a contract with Goodman Appraisal Consultants for an appraisal of the wastewater and sewer assets of ACUD number 2, and that is not to exceed $40,000 contract. So I'm seeking your approval to add that to this agenda, and that approval must be unanimous. Do I have any objections? Hearing none, that item is added as item L. Thank you so much. At this time, I will announce, because I know that all of my councilmen are interested to know, and many of you have already seen him, that my husband is home from the hospital. I thank our community for their wonderful support, prayer support, food, treats, cutting my grass, all of those things, weeding our flower beds. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you did for us. We appreciate it so much, and we certainly ask for yours and the community's continued prayer support for his full recovery. The secretary will at this time read the entire agenda, and following that, we will enter into a public comment period, as we have done in previous meetings. Thank you, gentlemen. Senator?
Proclamation to proclaim Constitution Week in Ascension Parish. Adoption of July 16, 2020 regular council meeting minutes. Adoption of August 6, 2020 regular council meeting minutes. Update on Ascension Parish versus Berkeley Insurance. Approval of Amendment Number 2 to Legal Services Contract for Daigle, PC, and Kessenich to continue to provide legal services in the matter of Ascension Parish versus Berkeley Insurance and HIRA. Additional $20,000 for a total not to exceed amount of $95,000. Authorizing prospective publishers in accordance with the adopted social media policy ratification of presidential appointments, resolution to memorialize the 40th anniversary of the Staggered Rail Act of 1980 to encourage the continued economic health of the freight rail industry in the nation and Louisiana. Discussion and approval of proposed changes to ULDC Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations Section 17405 Preliminary Plat. Discussion and approval of proposed revision to the ULDC Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations Section 40100 Definitions to add commencement of construction. Approval of lowest responsive bid, new gravel truck with loader model T370, Covington Sales and Service. Approval to extend time period for Ascension Parish employees and spouses to receive wellness checks until the 2021 enrollment period. Approval to enter into a contract with Hartman Consultants LLC for appraisal of ACUD number 2 wastewater infrastructure and assets without land appraisal, contract not to exceed $43,915. Approval to enter into a contract with Vista Appraisal Services, Inc. for appraisal for land assets associated with ACUD number 2 infrastructure and wastewater assets, contract not to exceed $17,625. Introduction of ordinance to amend Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to small plan unit development. Zoning review ID PZ 2311.20, lot A1 of the George Rain property containing 4.389 acres for Aaron McBride, located on the east side of LA Highway 73, approximately 630 feet south of Southwood Village Avenue.
Thank you very much, Senator. At this time, we will go into the public comment period.
The Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of liberties, embodies the principle of representative government in a republic dedicated to the rule of law. And September 17, 2020, marks the 223rd anniversary of framing the Constitution of the United States by the Constitutional Convention. And it's fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document, its memorial anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commensurate it. And Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the Presidents of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Clint Quintmall, President of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by virtue of the authority invested in me, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2020 as the Constitution Week in Ascension Parish, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787, by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my official signature and have caused to affix the official seal of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, on this 3rd day of September, 2020. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, is Miss Keene available?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Ms. King.
Hi, Miss Keene. Everybody in that
Hello.
conference, everyone in that conference room, when we look at you, are about this big. So we're not being able to identify you as readily as we should have. Thank you so much for being with us, and welcome to our virtual meeting, and the floor is yours. Or the camera, should I say.
Thank you. My name is Brittany King. I'm the Vice Regent of the Hiram Gaines chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. DAR is an organization that is dedicated to promoting historic preservation, education, and patriotism. Members honor their lineage and heritage as a descendant of a patriot of the American Revolution. My DAR patriot is my 5th great grandfather, President Thomas Jefferson. Some of you may remember me from last year. Some of you I spoke with last night on the call regarding the Children and Youth Services Planning Board. Constitution is a perfect way to engage school children in history. NSDAR petitioned Congress with the Constitution Week resolution on June 7, 1955. On June 14, 1955, Senator William Nolan made the first resolution to observe Constitution Week. Following the passage of the resolution, President Eisenhower issues his proclamation on August 19, 1955. President George W. Bush officially declared the inception of Constitution Week in 2002. The first Constitution Week observance was so successful that Senator Nolan introduced a Senate joint resolution on January 5th, 1956, to have the President designate September 17th through 23rd annually as Constitution Week. This resolution was adopted on July 23rd, 1956, and signed into public law 915 on August 2nd, 1956. As my chapter's Constitution Week chairman, it is my honor and duty to spread awareness of the United States Constitution and Constitution Week, which is why I'm here with you tonight. As a lifelong resident of Ascension Parish, I've noticed that the reach of lineage societies rarely touches it. I want to better serve an underserved parish. 2020 marks the 65th anniversary of the first resolution honoring Constitution Week. It also marks the 203rd anniversary of the signing of the Constitution and the 229th anniversary of the ratification of the first 10 amendments known as the Bill of Rights. I would like to thank Parish President Clint Quintmall for declaring Constitution Week, and Mr. McConnell for all of his help. There will be handouts left with Martin if anyone would like more info on DAR and Constitution Week.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I have a good friend who's she has some wonderful title in the Daughters of the American Revolution, and enjoys her association so much. Her name is Carolyn Morris.
I've heard the name.
I thought you might have. She's a great lady, but I don't think her 5th great grandfather was Thomas Jefferson.
I'm lucky with that one.
You are really cool.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Please, Secretary, please make a note that Councilman Thomas has joined us.
Yeah.
much. Okay, we are back. Cinnamon, do we have anyone who had commented at all, or are we ready to go on to the parish president's report?
No comments at all.
Thank you very much. So item 6 on the agenda is the parish president's report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good evening, council members. As you can imagine, parish government has been quite busy in the past couple of weeks. We had 2 hurricanes threaten us, and though we're happy to report that neither of them caused any significant damage, we were ready nonetheless. On Friday, August 21st at 7:30, just after the governor issued his, the parish president declared a state of emergency to be in effect until September 21st. As you are aware, a declared state of emergency is necessary for the parish to qualify for state and federal assistance. The Emergency Operations Centers was activated at the same time. They deactivated after Marco dissipated, only to reactivate on August 27th for Hurricane Laura. For the sake of time, I would just tell you that OEP did what they always do, and that's deliver. We're proud of that organization and that branch, and just the fact that things happen over there, and it's awesome to have a department like that. During the state of emergency, our communications department kept the public informed. We issued 18 press releases, 32 Facebook posts, Ascension 21 regularly posted bulletins and information, and even produced a tutorial video on how to register for Everbridge, which is our emergency alert system. When the weather first threatened, parish president authorized the relocation of Kara's animal health shelter to Lamar Dixon. I want to thank the public as well as the council members who helped us move those animals and the material needed for them to operate out of Lamar Dixon. It was some heavy lifting, but we pulled it off. I would also like to thank GoSept, who loaned us generators for Kara's house, Prevost Memorial Hospital, and ACD1. We're also very proud of Volunteer Ascension, led by Sherry DeNick and Tiffany St. Pierre, for rallying their volunteers along with the parish government and area Rotary clubs to collect and transport needed material to Lake Charles area. They will operate out of Lamar Dixon until tomorrow, and we'll probably begin delivering this weekend. Speaking of Lamar Dixon, honestly, words cannot convey what an asset this facility is. When the hospitals in Lake Charles were damaged because of the storm, they reached out to Dr. Trevino, who had some prior knowledge of Lamar Dixon because of his association with Ascension Parish. They made one call to Rachel and Lamar Dixon, and within 24 hours, not only were we set up to receive patients, we were actually receiving patients. And so impressed. The very next day, we got a visit from the governor, who took a tour of their entire facility. So kudos to Kyle and Jazz and Rachel and the whole crew for their ability to pull the trigger on this that fast. And also too, I can't leave out the Department of Technology, John LeBlanc, for all his efforts and making sure that the internet was set up and we had complete communications. So anyway, once again, thanks to the whole crew for pulling it off. Once again, these are tough times, but for the record, the fact that Lamar Dixon has been able to participate in this particular situation will help us offset some of the lost revenue from events that we received as a result of COVID. So, it's always good to be able to fill the gap. Immediately after Hurricane Laura left Lake Charles, a group of parish employees took it upon themselves to travel there and cook for victims of the emergency. I want to give a special thanks to Joey Broussard, Jerry Babin, Trey Cunningham, Davin DePlessis, and Rodney Savoy, as well as Ron Savoy, for not only taking the initiative to go out and get donations for foods. They cooked for over 1,500 people, and it didn't cost anybody a dime. They actually went out door to door to different businesses on their days off, as Brother Babin reminded me 8 times. It was on their day off to raise all the ingredients, and they drove there, slept in their truck one night, woke up the next morning and just started cooking. So once again, after 2016, we know we owe somebody somewhere. And I don't know if anybody from Lake Charles drove to Santa Maria to help us when we had our problems, but there were people every time you looked up, somebody from a different state or a different community helping us, and we owed it to pay it forward. And I was excited about what these guys were able to do. With that, we'll take any questions. Well, real quick, let me do this as well. let me thank the businesses who generously donated the ingredients to cook for 1,500 people. I want to thank LeBlanc's Boudin and LeBlanc's Cajun Specialty Meat, DeLone Supermarket, DJ's Grocery, Turo's Grocery, Steve Broussard, Bonneville Cracklin, Sandra Tomplay, Steve Robert, and Superstop. And of course the cooks, Joy Broussard, Jerry Babin, Trey Cunningham, Davin DePlessis, and Rodney Savoy. I just can't say enough the fact that they just took it upon themselves to take lead on this and did it. So we really do appreciate it.
Thank you very
And with
much,
that, I'll
John.
take it.
Thank you very much, John. I do want to mention our friends in Lake Charles who mentioned to me today that there's still a great need in that community. And so if there are folks in Ascension who want to help, my brother's going on Sunday to cook. And so there's significant need. They do not feel like they're able to get quite as much help. Maybe it's just that the area is more widespread. I don't quite understand. But I do know that my friends reached out and said if there was any more we could do, they would be very grateful. So if you know of somebody over there who needs help, if you have an opportunity in our community to go, please know that you will be much appreciated for having done that and that there is a need. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Diaz? Mr. Cagnolati.
Yeah, John, I understand Lamar Dixon was, I guess, the National Guard. Are they still involved with the post-storm?
Yes, in fact,
activity with Lamar Dixon?
Yeah, for every event, Lamar Dixon serves as a staging place. So it's Entergy, it's several organizations. That is, we're considered outside of the hurricane danger zone, so that is just a staging location for them. So yes, the National Guard has set up shop there as well as Entergy as well. So
Good. I'll agree with your statement earlier. It's a diamond for us. It's one of our crown jewels.
It really is, and they were just so amazed that 24 hours from a basketball arena to a full-fledged hospital, and we were able to do it, and so it's a jewel.
Coach Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wade. I want to thank the president for having such a great report and for doing such a great job in reporting the incidents that went on throughout the parish, and Ascension Parish jumped in and did an excellent job. So thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I also want kudos to Dr. Trevino, who is a Chief Medical Officer over at Our Lady of the Lake Ascension. Always for us, it's always St. E. And so we appreciate him and everything that he's done in our community to take care of us and folks from our neighboring parishes. Kudos to Dr. Trevino. Thank you. Okay, let's move along. Item number 7, the consent agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is the adoption of the regular meetings, the meeting minutes on July 16th and August the 6th.
Motion, Madam Chair.
Have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati. Looking for a second, gentlemen. Second by Councilman Mason to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions or any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 8. I'll remind you, gentlemen, don't know that I mentioned this previously this week, but this item 8A is an update on the Ascension Parish versus Berkeley insurance case. All of you are familiar with it. Ms. Christina Peck will be giving that presentation. I want to remind you that this could not be done in executive session because of our status virtually, but because we are, rather than delay, Ms. Peck is going to give general information, and she has asked that we remind you not to ask any questions, that any questions at this time might force her to have to decline to answer because of the nature of the question and the nature of the concerns that we have around the privacy of this issue. So, Ms. Christy Peck, I yield the floor to you, and I thank you for being with us. And I'll remind you that you're just about this big to us. So. We're not hearing Ms. Peck.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Hi, Christy. Welcome to the virtual meeting.
I hope that everyone got a copy of the memorandum that was dated August 28th, which it gave, I think, enough background for new members who may not be familiar with the lawsuit, and then also explained the ruling that we received in July from the ad hoc judge. It was good on the one hand because the judge ruled that we were right and Berkeley was wrong, that the policy provides coverage because it's ambiguous, but it also found that Berkeley was not in bad faith. And I am of the opinion that that part of the ruling is not correct. But the reason why I'm here is Berkeley has already indicated that they're going to ask the First Circuit Court of Appeal to look at the part of the judgment that says that there's coverage. And it's my opinion that since we're going to be going to the First Circuit Court of Appeal on that issue, that it would behoove us to ask the First Circuit to look at the ruling on bad faith. And so that's why I'm here. I feel like I had to give an update. It had been a while. You know, we're on three judges, and we've had three judges in a pandemic in the last year since this lawsuit was filed. But you know, it's the decision of this group. But I think what's in the memo, if you had an opportunity to read it, and also I gave you all copies of the judgment so that you know you could read for yourself and see, you know, what the issues are. And so I'm seeking the council's consent. I'm also seeking an increase in the contract because, quite frankly, having to fight two insurance companies has not been cheap, and they have pulled out pretty much every procedural process that they could getting to this point with the summary judgment.
Thank you, Ms. Pegg. It's Cinnamon, we do not have any actionable item on the agenda here because this is listed as an update. I think that perhaps Ms. Peck's contract issue is going to finance. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's next on the agenda, Terry.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Peck. You just got ahead of me. That's all. Forgive me.
I'm sorry. I kind of spoke about both of them at the same time.
That's okay. I just wasn't paying attention to my own agenda. Forgive me for that. So we will move on to the next item and take that up in item B, if you will. So if you'll remain there, if you will, Ms. Peck. Item B is the approval of amendment number 2 to the legal services contract for David Fisk and Kesselwood to continue to provide legal services in the matter of Ascension Parish versus Berkeley Insurance and HIRA. It's an additional $20,000 for a total not to exceed $95,000.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Lambert and a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Are there any questions of Ms. Peck relative to her contract? Mr. Mawson.
Hey, how you doing? I guess I just have a question mostly for the group in general, and I'm not sure if O'Neill is there. If we feel like we're actually, kind of reaching a conclusion here anytime soon, because between the actual fees we have paid out, and then if we approve this, we'll be up to another $95,000. We're looking at roughly, I don't know, $320,000, give or take, here or there, that would be invested in this. And I'm just curious if we have a stopping point in mind, if we're gonna, make our way all the way up to the $230,000 and get the other $230,000 back. And I guess that's just my comment, maybe open for discussion, how anybody else feels about it, if we feel like we're gonna have a stopping point on this number. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chase. Mr. Parrington, do you have a comment?
The stopping point would be when the council decides how far they want to go. This is the point we are right now.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
Just in my opinion, I don't think we should discuss a stopping point, because if I'm on the other side, if I know what our stopping point is, I'm just going to send enough motions and paperwork to get to that stopping point. So I think we need to be very careful in discussing that.
I think that will have to, I agree with you, Mr. Turner, that will have to wait until an executive session. At this point, We are simply trying to see if we're going to increase her fee by $20,000. Mr. Melanson, I have a motion and a second. Do you have any further comment?
Oh, yeah, man. Just one comment. In the suit, are we also trying to get reimbursed for these fees we're currently spending as well on top of the original?
Yeah, that is why we are bringing the bad faith claim, and that's why if we don't ask the First Circuit to look at the bad faith claim, this trial judge has indicated that he doesn't believe that Berkeley is in bad faith. That's the purpose for wanting to get that reviewed, because if they're in bad faith, you not only get your attorney's fees, but the statute says that you can get double what they owed. So there's the possibility of recovering twice what you paid to the attorney. So yeah, that's the real point.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I didn't realize that. I mean, I work in a chemical plant, ma'am. I don't know what's the difference between the First Circuit and anything else. So I'm learning on the run with this legalese.
The First Circuit is a review court, and you know, if they had not indicated that they were going to appeal the coverage issue, it would have probably been my recommendation that we, broach settlement. But since they're going to take that to the First Circuit and try to get the First Circuit to say there's no coverage, then, I think at this point you need to ask the Court of Appeal to look at the bad faith issue and to have that decided at the same time, if possible. Now, the First Circuit, this is a writ, and the difference between a writ and an appeal is a little bit complex, but they don't have to take the writ. They can decline, and then we'll go back to the trial court, and at that point we'll probably have a new judge, because the judge that made this decision is not going to be on the bench after the election and the swearing in of the new judge. So I would, depending on what happens with the First Circuit on these writs, I would probably come back to you all at that point when hopefully we can have executive session and there's not COVID issues, and we can discuss where to go from there. So that.
Thank you for that.
Answer your question.
Yes, Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert?
I think he's frozen.
I think he's frozen. Joel, are you there? Okay, Joel. Joel, did you have a question?
Frozen again.
I'll get back. He's trying to get in. Joel, try speaking, dear, and we'll see if we can hear you. We're not hearing you, Joel. You may need to get out of the video conference and get back in. Coach Thomas, would you go ahead while Mr. Robert is sorting his video out? You need to unmute.
Yes, I'm fine. I was just trying to get the attention of Joel.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Joel, have you joined us again? Okay, so we'll have to, his video is obviously frozen. We'll have to.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, there you are. Is that you, Joel?
Y'all can see me. I'm frozen.
We're not hearing you sufficiently, dear. It's skipping every other word or so.
Ineligible, yeah.
Are you attempting to recuse in this matter?
Okay.
Okay. So Mr. Robert is out of the conference, and I think that perhaps he was attempting to recuse in this matter. So his leaving is probably the most appropriate thing under the technical difficulties we're having. So at this time, the chair has a motion and a second to, or do we? Now I've lost track of where we are.
We do.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second to approve this addition. And Joel, do you have something you want to say, dear? Joel, if you need to, we're not being able to hear you. If you need to recuse, you need to leave the conference and then come back in. Just leave the conference. Cut yours off and then come back in, please. That will get you out of this. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. So whoever made the motion, I apologize. I have now forgotten who made the motion. Would you please repeat that motion?
Councilman Lambert made the motion.
Councilman Lambert, would you please repeat your motion?
Was to increase the 20,000 on the pavement.
Thank you very much. And we had a second. So are there any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. We'll try to wait for Joel to rejoin us. Give him a second and go on then to item C. Thank you so much, Ms. Peck, for being with us this evening. It's great to see you.
You too.
Would someone please text Joel and see if he can join us virtually again? So authorization of prospective publishers in accordance with the adopted social media policy. Martin McConnell, our Public Information Officer. Hi, Martin.
For having me. And I thank you for the vote of confidence that you have placed in my department to run the social media for the parish. So I'm here to honor your request to give you the names of all of the different people that we would like to administer the various social media accounts. And I presented that in front of you, but I'll take them one at a time if you want to do it that way.
If you would, please.
All right. Well, first, then I would like someone to amend your amendment because it cited the CIO, and I'd like you to change that to the Public Information Officer so that it would be in line with the rest of the policy.
Thank you. We'll do that, sir.
All right. I also request that the Director of the Office of Technology, who is currently Mr. Brandon O'Day, he should be an ex officio administrator on all social media platforms. He will be there for support and for assistance, and he is especially needed in the event of an administrator leaving the parish's employ. In fact, we have one current account that we're trying to get into because nobody who started that account is employed with the parish any longer, so we are working on that right now. So I ask that Mr. Brandon O'Day be ex officio. The YouTube channel, we use it very extensively. It's streaming live on YouTube right now, as a matter of fact. But most importantly, YouTube is used to archive all meetings and videos produced by the parish, by Ascension 21, and by the communications department. So the administrators for YouTube should be the video programming manager, who is currently John Connolly, and the video production specialist, and that's currently Marshall Courtney and Lester Kenyon. We have the Parish of Ascension Facebook page. That is the official Facebook page of parish government. I am generally the administrator of that page, but in addition, the administrator should be the web developer, and that is Mr. Devin Jackson. The Ascension Parish Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness Facebook page is operated by that department. The director of OSEP is Rachel Wilkinson. The assistant director is Dustin Montelius. The Planning and Intelligence Section Chief is Michelle Rayburn, and most of their Facebook posts are actually applied by the Technology Application Specialist, Mr. Colt Babbitt. The Department of Recreation maintains a Facebook page. The administrator for that one should be Recreation Director BJ Romano, Recreation Assistant Director Michelle Tomplak. The Ascension Counseling Center Facebook page disseminates a lot of information on department programs, schedules, and guidance. Ascension Counseling, it's often called mental health. So that's what that is. And the administrator would be the Director of Mental Health, who is currently Dr. Lisa Weber Curry. The Ascension Parish Health Unit Facebook page is used to make citizens aware of programs and services that are offered for the health of the parish residents. And the administrator of that page is the Health Unit Director, who is currently Christy Barnett. And finally, Ascension Parish government has a LinkedIn page, and that we use that to advertise positions that are available in the parish and their job offers that the parish has. And the administrators of the LinkedIn page would be the Human Resources Director, Mr. Randy Watts, Human Resources Generalist, Megan Babin, and the Human Resources Recruiter, Nikki Babin. So those are all of our social media platforms and the different people that we ask that you approve to administer them. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be glad to field them now.
I'll make a motion. Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion by Mr. Mason to approve, second by Mr. Lawler. Are there any questions? The motion to approve the public prospective publishers in accordance with the social media policy are, I would think, adopted. Are there any objections? Hearing none, they are adopted. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the comment.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Item D, ratification of presidential appointments. Mr. Diaz.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Terry, do you mind which order we take them in, or can I just start from the top and go with Joey?
Well, every now and then you get to pick and choose for yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll start with Joey Thuro, who is our designee for the Department of Transportation. This is a new job or a new position that is now being ratified. And our overall goal was to have everyone under the utilities director, both drainage, transportation, and utilities, all ratified. So Joey asked me not to tell you how much experience he has with DOTD, but trust me when I say it's a lot. He's a great guy. We trust him a lot. And we put a lot of faith and effort in his integrity that he does for us. Now, Terry, Ms. Castle, I don't know if you want to vote to ratify each one individually. Do you want to have questions?
Yes, we'd like to do them individually, please. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Robert and a second by Mr. Cagnolotti to approve the ratification of Mr. Joey Thuro. Are there any questions of the CAO with regard to Mr. Thuro? Are there any objections to the motion to ratify? Hearing none, Mr. Thuro is ratified. Great job. Next, Mr. Diaz.
All right, next up is Brandon O'Day, our IT guy. He's been with the parish for 12 years, and I can tell you the day we walked in this door on January 6th, we were all drinking from a hose pipe, and Brandon O'Day was the one guy that I really thought had a handle on things. He was the one guy the day we walked in the door handed us a 16-page report on his plan for the future of his department. He's a very passionate guy, very conscientious about, his department and what they achieved and their perception. Anyway, I can't say enough about Brandon O'Day. He's a true asset and a true jewel for this entire building.
Thank you. So I had a motion. I didn't hear who made it. Mr. Cagnolotti had a motion. Mrs. Lambert has a second. We're having some, okay, that sounds better. So we had a motion by Mr. Cagnolotti, a second by Mr. Lambert to approve the ratification of Mr. Brandon O'Day. Are there any questions? Are there any objections? In that case, Mr. O'Day is ratified in his position as Director of Technology.
Perfect.
Mr. Diaz.
All right, last but not least is Ricky Compton. Words can't describe what that guy has meant to this administration, to this building. Not just his institutional knowledge of what has happened in the past in this building, but the knowledge he brings to us from a state like Florida and Orange County, California. We can sit here and look at all our growth problems and be shocked when we grow by 20,000 people. He was actually involved in the planning department for a county in Florida that grew by 127,000 people in a 10-year period. So he has a vision of what it looks like for us The fact that he spent 3 years at Breck, oversaw 184 facilities, hundreds of ballparks, really gives us the ability to have someone in a position that can help us get a handle around our facilities. Because literally we bleed millions of dollars a year because we do not properly maintain them. I can just say that Ricky's a true asset, and it's an honor and a privilege to work with him. I love having jam sessions with him where we just kind of bounce a bunch of ideas off each other. And I don't know what this administration does without Ricky, so I'll take any questions.
I have a motion by Mr. Robert.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mason. Oh, Mr. Melanson spoke it, please. Sorry about that, Michael. And are there any questions? Mr. Ogeron.
Mr. Diaz, I see
Yes,
that
sir.
Mr. Compton's current position is that of general manager at Lamar Dixon.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's his current title because his new title as of a couple minutes ago did not exist.
As of a couple of minutes ago.
In order to hire him, we had to give him a title, and that title was available until such time that we can create this position.
But we created that position months ago.
Correct.
Months ago. That position was
Correct.
created back in May.
Correct.
Okay. So we had 2 general managers of Lamar Dixon for the last 7 months?
One was just a title when we hired Ricky to hold him over till such time that we can create this position.
So creating a title, is that what's called for in our charter? I believe
Correct.
our charter indicates that we're supposed to hire people in those ratified positions
Charter
and keep
gives-
them maintained.
But we created this as a ratified position.
I understand, but if he was titled as general manager of Lamar Dixon, he should have been ratified within 4 months of his appointment to that position, and I feel he has not been.
And we tried to do that, but there were hangups with amendments we've tried this well within the time frame considering COVID, but there were hangups that we had to fix because amendments were proposed that were unconstitutional, that were changed his description. So this was something that we've been working on for a long time.
I understand, but at what point did this administration
I move that we move forward to the vote.
submit his name as general manager for Lamar Dixon?
Say that again?
At what point did this administration submit his name as general manager for Lamar Dixon?
We didn't.
I believe
When we
you never
hired
did.
him, we had to sign a title from day one,
call
and
for a
that was the title that was available.
All
I
right,
understand
gentlemen.
that, sir, but everyone has a title. And our charter
Yes.
requires that he has to be ratified within 120 days for whatever title the administration gives him. I guess I'm asking again, has this administration followed the regulations within our charter that says you had to have him ratified within 120 days?
We
Sir,
have.
what? You
We
believe
feel like
you
we have. During COVID, and we had to keep on it because there were several, we created the title as the charter requires, and we were ready to ratify him, but then there were some issues with an amendment that somebody proposed that did some other things that were in violation of the charter. So we had to punt it. We had to then come back and undo that particular amendment. Then we proposed it again for the last one. Then we were notified that we needed a job evaluation. So we held off. And so this is why we're doing it at this point in time. But it's been attempted many, many, many months ago.
It could have, would have, should have, but the administration did not do so. And is it not true that it's incumbent on the administration to follow these rules and regulations that we have under the charter and under our code of ordinances?
And likewise, it's incumbent upon council members to present amendments that are constitutional. And it's incumbent upon council members who submit amendments.
All right, gentlemen, that's enough.
Not to put things that are not an amendment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Diaz. We have a motion and a second to approve Mr. Compton. Is my recollection correct on that, gentlemen?
So we're just going to run him through even though he shouldn't be ratified.
I've got a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Robert.
Go censor yourself, Mr. Robert.
That's enough, gentlemen. That's enough. If I had my gavel, I'd be banging on this table. That's enough.
Point of order, please.
That's enough. all of you.
No, I'd like to state my
Thank
point of
you.
order, Madam Chair.
I thanked you, Mr. Robert, for your point of order. Thank you.
Can I state what it was about?
I'm sure we're aware of what it was about, but you certainly may state your problem.
Thank you, ma'am. It's about, this is in fact an attack on Mr. Compton, as was seen in his public Facebook post where he completely
No. That's enough,
went
Mr.
and
Robert.
talked all kinds of bad things about him. So it's inappropriate
Thank
for
you.
him to continue and attack him now.
Thank you, sir. All
I
right.
take objection to that comment.
That's
Robert.
enough, gentlemen.
Again,
That's
you are
enough.
false.
That's enough. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Ogeron, you have a right to vote. There's a motion and a second. Your comments have been heard. Mr. Coach Thomas, do you have a comment?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Do these ratifications come with pay increase?
Mr. Diaz?
Mr. Diaz? Mr. President, somebody. Do the ratification come with a pay increase?
The pay is consistent of the pay from when he was hired. The pay is consistent. There's no increase in his salary based on this approval. That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Melanson?
It wasn't just Mr. I was considering all three ratification, not just Mr. Compton one.
I think that
no raises.
Thank you very much. Mr. Melanson?
Yes, ma'am. And I also believe a good bit of this timeline was covered with the state of the emergency via the COVID, because I believe it was either April or May before we ratified anybody. It was past 120 days, and that allowed us timelines. We did it the first go round. I'm not 100% sure how it does play here, but we have amended, this job, I believe, twice in June and maybe at our last council meeting. So between the COVID and the amendments that we've done to the ratification job titles, just helping fill in that timeline.
Thank you, Mr. Melanson. We appreciate you, Chair. Appreciate your assistance. Are there any further comments? Any objections to the ratification of Mr. Compton to the position he holds today? Mr. Ogeron has objected, so Ms. Cinnamon, will you please do a roll call?
Councilman Thomas.
Yes.
Councilman Robert.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilman Ogeron.
No.
Councilman Latham.
Yes.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
Yes.
Councilman Wagensback.
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati.
Yes.
Councilman Mason.
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes. And I'm pleased to say that Mr. Compton has been ratified in his position as facilities manager. Thank you so much. And I've worked with Ricky for a number of years at the parish prior to his leaving us, and I've maintained a personal relationship with him during that period while he was gone, and I welcome him back. He's an asset to the parish. Thank you very much.
Ms. Terry, on behalf of the administration, we can't thank you guys enough for approving all three of them. We're very excited.
We are happy to. It's a great team. Thank you so much. Moving along, Chase, did you have something you wanted to say, dear?
I just want to thank them all for continuing to be public servants.
Absolutely. So item E, a resolution to memorialize the 40th anniversary of the Staggers Rail Act of 1980 to encourage the continued economic health of the freight rail industry in the nation and in Louisiana. Mr. Sebastian was not able to attend, and so the resolution will be read. Who in the conference room is going to read that resolution for me? Not here.
I can read it, sir.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you.
It's a resolution memorializing the 40th anniversary of the Staggers Rail Act. Whereas the Staggers Rail Act of 1980 was enacted to remove outdated regulations on America's freight rail industry that had badly damaged the industry and placed it on the brink of collapse. Whereas the Staggers Rail Act of 1980 allowed the freight rail industry to survive into the modern era, providing benefits to businesses, consumers, taxpayers, and the economy. Whereas the freight rail industry has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in the national rail network over the last 40 years, resulting in new economic opportunities, better infrastructure, service to ports and industries, and the creation of thousands of jobs. Whereas rail traffic productivity have doubled, rail rates have declined by more than 40%, and investments in infrastructure and technology have made recent years the safest on record. Whereas moving freight by rail promotes economic development, creates jobs, mitigates pollution, eases highway congestion, and saves taxpayer money. Whereas Ascension Parish is expected to see increasing freight volume and continued population growth in conjunction with growth across much of Louisiana. Whereas this growth necessitates that Ascension Parish pursue and encourage additional multimodal transportation options in the coming decades. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Ascension Parish Council memorializes the 40th anniversary of the Staggers Rail Act of 1980 to encourage the continued economic health of the freight rail industry in the nation and Louisiana. Resolved that the Ascension Parish Council encourages continued rail development and investment within the parish to promote economic development, efficiently move freight, decrease pollution, ease the burden on local roadways, and save taxpayer dollars. And resolved that the Ascension Parish Council hereby authorizes the signatures of the undersigned council members be added to the national sign-on letter presented by Go Rail to be sent to the Surface Transportation Board on October 14, 2020.
Thank you so much, Senator. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Mason, a second by Councilman Melanson. Are there any questions regarding the resolution? Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Item F, discussion and approval of proposed changes to the Uldc Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-405, Preliminary Plat. Mr. Cagnolati, Mr. Ogeron, and Mr. Lambert requested that this be added to the council agenda. I believe that and there's Mr. Fournier. How are you? Great to see you, sir. Great to see you, sir. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Fournier relative to this proposed change? Mr. Fournier, would you give us a brief explanation of what this is? Just a small summary.
Yes, sure. I'd be happy to, Chairwoman Casso. What we're trying to do is eliminate some of the past problems that we've had with preliminary plats that had been approved by the Planning Commission, and then no action was taken for months and in some cases years. We didn't get construction plans approved. We didn't get the construction started. So this basically cleans up that possibility. They're given a particular time frame to get their project completed or at least started and then completed, and then this cleans that action up.
Yes, Mr. Robert.
I'm not against ultimately doing this, but last meeting when we spoke of this issue, I voiced my concern of people that have been told by current administration before, with these types of projects, hey, what do I need to do? As long as I still have some work going on, because you have engineering work, people have different jobs going on. Sometimes it takes a few years before you move forward on something as far as actually doing work. I feel like we owe it to at least have some type of public notice and maybe some type of time frame to where they can address and come to and explain why it's taking so long and et cetera, before you just take the permits from them.
Well, in the ordinance itself, the proposed ordinance, we do address that, Councilmember Robert, and that the Planning Commission can grant a waiver or grant an extension. We can basically ask them for more information. We give the Planning Commission a list of projects that are in the queue right now and up for approval. So we do address that. And the next item that's a companion to this one is a definition of the start of construction. So what we're trying to do is define what construction start is, and it's a well-researched definition, and we're putting that in play. All right. So.
The chair would entertain that someone make a motion, please, to approve or to deny, so that we can further our discussion. Mr. Cagnolotti has made a motion to approve this. Your motion is to approve, Mr. Cagnolotti.
Correct.
And a second by Mr. Lawler. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Robert, did you have a question? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, like I said, I'm not asking for all the cases to have to go through the Planning Commission or having to do any of that. I'm just asking for some type of grace period to be given that once we pass this ordinance, say you have 6 months to reach whatever point we decide of as far as construction, because you have thousands and in some points people have hundreds of thousands of dollars in engineering and architecture for certain projects that they have not been started yet. I'm just asking for a grace period of 6 months, then do whatever you want to do with Planning Commission and whatnot, but without having to go through the Planning Commission and whatnot for the 6 months. Like it could be done now, like today or tomorrow.
Mr. Fournier, is there a grace period from the passing of this ordinance until it's, I would think it's probably the same as most ordinances, only 10 days?
Yes, once it's published, I think it's 10 days after it's been published, the ordinance takes effect.
So, Mr. Robert, if you would like to offer an amendment to this item to grant an extension of time between now and the enforcement of this ordinance, you are welcome to make that amendment and see if you can get a second.
Yes, ma'am, I do appreciate that idea, and I do make a motion to amend to add the phrase that we have a 6-month grace period before this actual ordinance kicks in from after the vote.
Is there a second for that motion, for that amended motion? Mr. Cagnolotti.
I just have discussion.
Okay. So there, Mr. Robert, I don't hear a second to your amended motion, so I think it dies for lack of a second. Mr. President, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're going to also do is notify through mass email all the developers and people who submit plats on a regular basis, so they'll know the changes and try to confirm that and get that information out as much as possible. And that's with any change we do. So we'll do attempt to do a mass notification as well. Just wanted to note that. Thank you.
Mr. Lawler, I see your hand up.
That's probably from about 4 things ago. I forgot to take it down. My fault.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Any other questions, gentlemen? So the motion is as it was initially read, and I have a motion and a second for that. I'm trying to do this right because that wonderful parliamentarian is there. And so are there any, after all these questions, are there any objections to the, yes, Mr. Robert? We have an objection, Cinnamon, so we will have a roll call vote.
Councilman Thomas.
No.
Councilman Robert.
No.
Councilman Turner.
No.
Councilman Orgeron.
Any clarification on exactly what part of this amendment we're voting on?
We're not voting on the amendment, sir. We're voting on the initial, on the item, the approval of the item?
The changes.
The changes to the code.
Then yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Malasol,
Yes.
Councilman Lawler,
Yes.
Councilman Wagisback,
Yes.
Councilman Cagnolati,
Yes.
Councilman Mason,
Yes.
Chairwoman Casso.
Yes.
You have 8 yeas and 3 nays.
Thank you very much. Item G, discussion and approval of a proposed revision to the ULDC Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-40100, definitions, to add commencement of construction. This is likewise on the agenda at the request of Councilman Cagnolati, Councilman Ogeron, and Councilman Lambert. Mr. Fournier, have a motion to approve by Mr. Cagnolati.
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Lawler. And now, Mr. Fournier, do you have any comment you would like to make?
No, this is just a companion piece to the previous agenda item, and it just defines the commencement of construction, which was not a defined term in the ULDC before. So we're just placing that in there now.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions, gentlemen? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item H, approval of the lowest responsive bid, new grapple truck with loader, model T370, Covington Sales and Service, Mr. Devin Rust from Purchasing. Good evening, Devin. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, ma'am. On July 2nd, 2020, the purchasing department received 7 bids for the new grapple truck with loader. After review, the purchasing department and the public works department recommends accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Covington Sales and Service, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this project and our equipment. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Robert to approve the purchase. Have a second by Mr. Mason. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Approved I. Item I, approval to extend the time period for Ascension Parish employees and their spouses to receive wellness checks until the 2021 enrollment period.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Travis Turner, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion to extend the time period passes. Item J, approval to enter into a contract with Hartman Consultants, LLC for appraisal of ACUD number 2's wastewater infrastructure and assets without the land appraisal, not to exceed $43,915. I have a motion by Councilman Robert. The second was by Councilman Lambert. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item K, approval to enter into a contract with Vista Appraisal Services Incorporated for appraisal for land assets associated with the ACU number 2 infrastructure and wastewater assets, not to exceed $17,625.
Motion.
A motion by Councilman Lawler, a second by Councilman Malasson. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. This time we'll consider item L, which was the added item. It is approval to contract with Goodman Appraisal Consultant for appraisal of ACUD number 2, wastewater infrastructure and assets, and to review and provide a second opinion on the associated land appraisal. Not to exceed $40,000. Have a motion. I didn't see who made the motion. Motion by Councilman Robert, second. Councilman Robert, second by Councilman Melanson. Are there any questions? Mr. Melanson.
Yes, ma'am. Can we just state the contract or the price tag just for a record, being none of us have the document?
Yes, it was not to exceed $40,000.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any questions, any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 9, introduction of ordinances. A, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential RM to small planned unit development SPUD zoning review ID PZ-2311.20 Lot A-1 of the George Wren property containing 4,389
Full point.
Excuse me, 4 point. That wasn't I was going to say, I don't know where there's a 4,000 acre strip on Highway 70. 4 point.
I would like to make a motion to introduce.
Yes, I have a motion by Mr. Melanson to introduce. And at this time, I'll remind you, gentlemen, that we need to stay on this video conference for the Ascension Consolidated Utilities District number 2 meeting that will immediately follow it. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the council meeting. I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati to adjourn. Second by Mr. Mason. Thank you so much. All right. Cinnamon, do we need to take a break, or can we just go right into item to the Consolidated Utilities District number 2?
We can go right into it, Terry. We need to do the same thing and read the whole agenda and have a 15-minute comment period. 15
minutes?
Yes.
Did you say 15? Okay, thank you very much. Yes. And I thank our parliamentarian for being with us tonight. She made me nervous, but thank you so much. Okay, at this time, having adjourned the council meeting, we will call to order the Ascension Consolidated Utilities District number 2 meeting on September the 3rd at 6:30 or thereafter. In the video, this is a video conference. There is a phone call for public comment. That number is 225-621-8636, and the participation code is 939496. Having called the meeting to order, I would invite Mr. Ogeron to lead us in prayer and the pledge, if you would, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please bow your heads in prayer. Lord, we thank you for the right and the privilege to serve our citizens and our neighbors. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless us with your grace as we move forward as servants, not only of the citizens of Ascension, but the citizens of your heavenly cities. With that, we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time we'll go to, Cinnamon will read the agenda and in its entirety, and then we will go to a public comment period for 15 minutes.
Resolution to approve commercial rates for Ascension Consolidated Utilities District number 2. Approval to enter into a contract with Hartman Consultants LLC for appraisal of ACUD number 2 wastewater infrastructure and assets without land appraisal. Contract not to exceed $43,915. Approval to enter into a contract with Vista Appraisal Services, Inc. for appraisal for land assets associated with ACUD number 2 infrastructure and wastewater assets contract not to exceed $17,625.
Then you have item 9, Cinnamon. Oh, I have to get permission from all of you to add item 8, which is the second contract that we discussed earlier, the Goodman contract.
Motion to add to agenda.
Thank you very much. Have a motion by Councilman Lawson, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to add that item to the agenda. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. And Cinnamon, if you'll go ahead and read item 8.
I don't have it written, Terry, but since you just added it, that's fine.
Yes, it's the Goodman, it's the same language. I'm happy to read it from the original agenda. It's the approval to a contract with Goodman Appraisal Consultants for appraisal of ACUD2 wastewater infrastructure and assets, and to review and provide a second opinion on associated land appraisals. The contract not to exceed $40,000. I do want to mention that I think I managed to negotiate a 30-day turnaround on this from, or Ken did, from, I encouraged him to negotiate. Don't want to take credit for something I didn't do, but I encouraged him to negotiate a 30-day turnaround on this appraisal.
We will do public comment.
We can now open the public comment period.
We will return at 7:40.
Thank you very much.
At 7:40,
Are there any public comments that need to be made, Cinnamon? Were there any calls?
No comment. No
All right,
comment.
Thank you very much for confirming that. At this time, we have made a chair's addition, and so we will take up item number 5, which is a resolution to approve commercial rates for Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 2. Who is here to speak on this matter?
I don't believe anyone is, Terry. This is a recommendation from utilities. It's an old recommendation. It was a couple months because we had to schedule an ACUD2 meeting on its own, and we weren't able to do that until now. So these went through utilities. I'm not sure if Corey wants to speak on it, but I do know that they didn't have commercial rates set for ACUD. They only had residential ACUD1. So they're just adding the commercial rates.
Thank you, Cinnamon. You filled in quite well. Or does anyone, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the commercial rates for Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 2. Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I will make that motion, and I will confirm to the best of my recollection that what Cinnamon said is correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawler. Have a second by Mr. Cagnolotti or Mr. Mason, whoever you want to give it to. They're both giving me the peace sign here. And we will take questions now on this item. Mr. Melanson.
Yeah, I just want to understand the chart I'm looking at. So the price increase, it shows both of them are dated 2019. One of them is estimated monthly sewer user fee, and the other one says the 2019 individual dedicated wastewater treatment plant. They both say 2019. So are we making a motion to raise the prices from the left column to the right column?
I'm unfamiliar with this work. Mr. Robert, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
I was just going to ask if it would be appropriate from Madam Chair if we ask the Chair Utilities, Councilman Orgeron, to give a little bit of background on this for us. This came from Utilities, correct?
Yes, it did, but
Yes,
Mr. Orgeron is no longer on the virtual meeting. Mr. Melanson?
Oh, yeah, I see Mr. Ken Dawson is logged on, but his video is not on. I just want to confirm. So we have two columns of prices.
Right.
And both columns are dated 2019. I just want to understand that we are raising prices from the column on the left to the column on the right per the ACUD number 2 agenda item that we have.
Mr. Dawson, are you hearing us?
It looks like we're bringing up the rates roughly 45%, going from $44 to $63 on the 5/8 of inch line. That's most likely residential.
I'll make a motion to delay this to the next meeting where maybe they can have some people to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. I think that's appropriate.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Mr. Robert. I have a motion by Mr. Robert to delay that. There's Ken. Ken, can you answer this question for us?
Here, go ahead.
Let's not, we have not acted on that motion. Mr. Robert, would you like to withdraw your motion for the moment?
I will if yes, absolutely. If
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dawson's up to it.
Yes, thank you, Ken.
So what's the question, Chair? I stepped out a second.
It's okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Robert. Mr. Moss, will you repeat your question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'm sorry for talking over you.
It's okay.
Mr. Ken, on our agenda item with the packet, there's 2 rows of dollar figures, right? And at the top of each one, it shows the 5/8 cents water line, $44. Are we proposing to move that to 63?
Okay, yes. I think that's the case. That's only in the ordinance, correct?
Just the reason I asked, they both say
The resolution,
2019.
Ken.
Both.
I'm sorry, say it again, Terry?
The resolution, Ken. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to walk on you, Chase, either, but it's a resolution, Ken, it's not an ordinance. We've
Okay.
raised rates by resolution in the drainage district.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, to increase the rate by the amount that's stated, Chase.
All right, I was just asking because they both say 2019, and I just wanted clarification. So we were proposing to move every dollar amount in that left 2019 column to the new prices that are in the right column that also say 2019.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So I have some concern about that, because if any of that is residential, the stated item on the agenda is to approve commercial rates for Ascension Consolidated Utilities District Number 2. So I don't think we can act to raise any individual rates, any residential rates with that description on the agenda.
Yeah, the residential rates should not have gone up. The purpose was to focus on the commercial rates for that particular item, because we did not have any commercial rates for the sewer, for that particular area. So the goal was to increase, to actually be able to put in the sewer rates.
Could we possibly amend it to where we said that this does not affect residential?
Mr. Parrington, do you want to give us some clarification here?
Know anything about this? I just drafted the ordinance. I don't know what the committee did.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lawler. I'll get to you in just a moment, Chase.
Yes, if I recollect correctly, that this does only affect commercial rates. There may be smaller lines, the 5/8 of an inch line or whatever it may be. Even though that's small, you may have commercial lines that are that size. But this is only going to be for commercial lines. We are not affecting residential at all.
Okay, that's a good clarification. Mr. Cagalati, let me let Mr. Melanson circle back, and then I'll get to you. Mr. Melanson.
I know Councilman Lawler just said what I was going to ask. Even though we have commercial the same size as residential, it will not affect residential, just the smaller commercial lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cagalati.
Yes, and I'll point out that the justification for the increase is pointed out in the resolution, whereas the parish sewer does not adequately cover the cost of sewer systems, and whereas in order for them to cover the cost of maintaining the sewer program, an increased charge is needed. That's stated in the resolution. This is one of those where we are significantly subsidizing with parish funds the rate. Yes, Mr. Robert.
I believe Councilman Wagisback has something to say. I keep seeing him raise his hand.
I haven't seen him. Come on. You mean Councilman Wagisback is raised? All I see is from here up on him. There's his hand. He hadn't been raising his hand. Thank you for a moment of brevity, Mr. Robert. We appreciate you. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions about this item? This is exclusively commercial rates. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. These next three items are repeats of the items that you approved in the council meeting, but they must be approved here as well in ACUD number 2's board. So let's go with them. Item number 6, approval to enter into a contract with Hartman Consultants LLC for appraisal of ACUD number 2 wastewater infrastructure and assets without a land appraisal. Contract not to exceed $43,915. I have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Cagalati. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item 7, approval to enter into a contract with Vista Appraisal Services Incorporated for appraisal for land assets associated with ACUD number 2. I have a motion by Mr. Mason. Is there who had the motion?
Joel had the motion. I got the second.
Hi, Joel. If you jump in there and make the motion while I'm still reading, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the paper.
It's my fault. I do take the blame.
No, that's okay, Joel. I'm happy to not have to read that whole thing all the way out there. Objections? Hearing none, that motion passes as well. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to item number 8, which
Motion by
is-
Mason.
I have a motion by Mr. Mason, a second by Mr. Cagnolati. I got a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Are there any questions? That is about the hiring of Goodman appraisals. That's the second appraisal that will also look at the land. So review that. So any objections to this motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. Now, for the night, item number 9, motion to adjourn by Mr. Cagnolati, and Mr. Mason has his piece signed up. I guess that means second. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, we've had a great night.
Good night.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good job, Terry.
Thank you.
Please note, the meeting is no longer being